Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to the third and final day of the International Conference on Ocean Education and Training. This morning's session we're going to have our keynote presentation, then we will have full presentations and we're going to squeeze in one flash presentation before the coffee break due to travel arrangements. So that's what you can expect up to the coffee break. I hope everybody had a great night and that those that joined the dinner enjoyed it. It was great to chat to everybody and get to socialise even further. For this morning, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Franscesca Santoro. Franscesca is a Senior Programme Officer for Ocean Literacy at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. And here she's also coordinating ocean literacy with the UN Ocean Decade Programme. Franscesca holds a PhD in Analysis and Governance for Sustainable Development from the School of Advanced Studies in Venice, with specialisation in marine environmental sciences, marine governance, science education and communication. Franscesca joined UNESCO in 2011, and before that she worked as a lecturer for the University Foscari in Venice, sorry. She worked as well for several international research centres such as the Euro-Mediterranean Centre for Climate Change, the International Marine Centre, the National Oceanographic Centre and the Joint Research Centre. So I'm sure we're going to get a treat of a presentation from Franscesca. So over to you. Thank you. Just for all speakers as well, I will kind of wave and shake my hand when you have 1 minute left, and that means wrap up, and when I stand up, cut. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks to the organizer for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be able to tell you a bit more about what UNESCO does on ocean literacy. So I've heard a lot, many people mentioning ocean literacy during these days. So I'm really happy to bring to you the perspective of the IOC of UNESCO. So I know I don't have to spend too many words with an audience like you about what are the main threats that the ocean is facing. But the title of this session is Ocean Literacy in a Changing Blue Planet. And this, I think, is really key, that we have to remember that we are in an emergency situation. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he said we are in an ocean crisis, opening the last UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon last June. The factors driving change in the ocean are most of the time outside of the marine environment, and the majority of the people are unaware of the effects of human activities on the marine environment. And more and more we are also, the marine sciences community is aware of the fact that we have to adopt an holistic approach, an integrated approach, because the ocean is facing multiple stressors. And what we don't know yet is what are the effects of those multiple stressors on the ocean environment. And the thing is that, of course, we have to invest in ocean science to know more, but I was lucky enough during my PhD to be part of the knowledge assessment unit at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And I was part of the group led by Silvio Funtovitz. I don't know if you have ever heard about the post-normal science concept. And he was saying, together with Ravitz, he was saying when uncertainty is high, but also stakes are high and decisions are urgent, we need to extend our peer review community. He was calling for an extension and an inclusion of the community in the peer review process. And also another word that I heard mentioning a lot of times during these days is transdisciplinarity, and I even did my PhD on transdisciplinarity, so it's a topic that is really dear to my heart. And transdisciplinarity is really about co-producing knowledge with all the stakeholders. So for me, in a nutshell, that's what ocean literacy is providing knowledge to all stakeholders that have to take part in the decision-making process and in the knowledge assessment process, providing the knowledge they need to be able to participate in those processes in a meaningful and in an impactful way. So what is ocean literacy? I'm going to tell you like the internationally recognized definition of ocean literacy. Sorry. is the understanding of the ocean influence on us and our influence on the ocean. But for me is really, as I already tried to explain, is much more than just providing or increasing people's awareness on the ocean. It's really providing knowledge and providing tools to stakeholders to make informed and responsible decisions on the ocean and its resources. So these are the famous 7 essential principles. I was thinking that maybe we need to do a little review of those principles, in particular on the 7th one, because we are advancing quite a lot, although we would like to do more. But you know, as we know, thanks to the CBAT 2030 initiative, we have mapped now 23.4, I think, % of the seafloor. And it's quite astonishing that it took us like 100 years to map 5%, and in the last, I think, 3-4 years, we have reached the 23.4%. And that's why, and that's because, you know, a lot of stakeholders are joining this endeavor of, you know, sharing data, sharing knowledge with everyone. So what is UNESCO role and IOC role in this endeavor? Of course, as you all know, the UNESCO is the specialized UN agency for science, education, and culture, and the IOC is the only UN competent body for ocean science. So having in UNESCO both ocean science and education makes it the perfect organization to deal with ocean literacy. A little bit of timeline and history of what we have been doing so far on ocean literacy. So we actually, and I was mentioning, sorry, is it possible to have a glass of water? We have actually, and I was remembering this, the first European conference on ocean literacy happened in Bruges in Belgium in 2012, and that was kind of a start. But the real start was in 2015 when 2 Horizon 2020 projects were funded by the European Commission, and they were done in the context of the Galway Statement, which was an agreement between Europe, US, and Canada to promote the North Atlantic ocean research cooperation, and ocean literacy for the first time was mentioned as one of the priorities. And since then we have, you know, tried to expand the reach of ocean literacy more on an international level. As you might know, this is a concept that started in the US around 2004, but then, you know, thank you so much. Sorry. But, you know, UNESCO role was really to bring this more international perspective in the scene. And we have organized a number of conferences, but for me, really a milestone was the first UN Ocean Conference held in 2017 in New York. Where we proposed a little side event. They gave us a little room for like 30 people. In the end, we had 150 people, like people lying on the floor because everybody was so interested to hear what ocean literacy was. And we even managed to get ocean literacy mentioned in the final document. That was really a big driver. Also because at the time, 2017 is really a milestone for international ocean action. Peter Thompson, who at the time was the UN ambassador for Fiji, was appointed as the UN Special Envoy for the Ocean. And he is really a big advocate for ocean literacy, and he has been helping us from that time till now to really push for a better recognition of the central role of ocean literacy in the international agenda. So again, something that I heard quite a lot, and it was, I was really happy about hearing that almost everybody mentioned the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. As you know, this decade was approved by the UN General Assembly in December 2018 and 19, and then we as IOC of UNESCO were mandated to coordinate first the planning phase, and then we are actually now coordinating the actual implementation of the Ocean Decade. And the Ocean Decade as a motto, as you might know, which is going from the ocean we have to the ocean we want. And these are the 7 expected outcomes of the Ocean Decade that are sort of describing the ocean we want. And the ocean we want, of course, is clean, healthy, and resilient, productive, predictable, safe, accessible, but very relevant for this community, also inspiring and engaging. So, and quite interestingly, this 7th outcome was introduced during the planning phase of the Ocean Decade, because, you know, the community and all the stakeholders we have consulted, they ask us to introduce this 7th outcome to really stress the importance of ocean literacy in this endeavor. The Ocean Decade supports the 2030 Agenda, of course, in particular SDG 14, but also all the other SDGs, because we know that the ocean is linked to all the other SDGs. And these are the three main objectives of the Ocean Decade, which of course is to fill knowledge gaps, to generate knowledge that is needed to, to fully implement SDG 14, but more importantly is to increase the use of that ocean knowledge and to develop useful skills to help finding solutions for sustainable development. So the vision of the Ocean Decade is the science we need for the future we want. And ocean literacy actually is relevant throughout all these three objectives, but of course, mainly with the third one, where we are, as I was saying before, really trying to make sure that that ocean knowledge that is produced by the exciting marine science community is actually used to provide those solutions that we urgently, as ever before, need now. So why ocean literacy is essential in the Ocean Decade, I think I've already mentioned and explained you this, is expected to play a major role and actually is considered as the enabling factor for the success of the Ocean Decade. As I was mentioning before, ocean literacy is much more than just providing some information to school students about the ocean. It's really educating to empower. And of course, I always like to mention here Sylvia Earle when she said, by far the greatest threat to the ocean and then to ourselves is ignorance. So ocean literacy is really there to fill those gaps, but most of all to really make sure that people understand the importance of the ocean for our survival on this planet. During the planning phase of the Ocean Decade, we also worked to develop a framework, an ocean literacy framework. So we held quite an extensive consultation with different stakeholders to understand what were their priorities in terms of ocean literacy during the Ocean Decade. We also had a participatory workshop in Venice, and we came up with those 4 priority areas for ocean literacy. So advancing policy, formal education, of course, but also corporate action and community engagement. And to actually, see how we could implement this idea and how we could work towards those 4 priority areas, we decided to use the theory of change, where we actually identify the desired change that we want to achieve and how to achieve it. So the theory of change helps us developing a model that first of all, ask us to define the context and the desired results, to explore potential solutions and changes, and then to establish priority axis. So what we need to do to apply the theory of change is to define the desired impact, the desired change we want to achieve, to draw the theory of change, and then developing a strategy. And that's actually what we did in the context of the Ocean Decade. This is an example of how to design a theory of change, and this is what we have designed for the Ocean Decade, for ocean literacy in the context of the Ocean Decade. So the context is the one at the bottom of this scheme. We first of all wanted to define our values, and so our values are inclusion, diversity, collaboration, and equity. We also draw on some existing theoretical approaches, in particular innovation and entrepreneurship, future thinking, participatory science, inquiry-based learning, science communication, and individual and collective action. And of course, stakeholders. We want to involve everyone, as you see. In fact, the program of the Ocean Decade is called Ocean Literacy with All. because we want to involve really everyone, from science to artists to donors, foundation, general public. And how we want to implement ocean literacy is really by highlighting that in working on ocean literacy, there are two main opportunities for people, is learning, but also contributing to implement this change. And of course, the final change and impact that we want to achieve is a transformational impact that will help us, in particular, working on that behavioral change and system change that we need to really, as it is said in one of the challenges of the Ocean Decade, really making that step change so that everyone is aware of the importance of the ocean and is not only that, but is able to really act to make sure that we develop those solutions that, as I said, we urgently need. So I'm going to tell you just a few examples of what we are doing to work towards those priority axes that I mentioned before. In terms of advancing policy, we launched a year ago, actually, because it was the 24th of January, the International Day of Education. We launched our proposal for a blue curriculum, where we try to help in providing an approach to our member states on how to include ocean literacy in a structured manner in curriculum frameworks. Of course, curriculum reforms is really a difficult and long process, but it is really important to support our member states, and there are some who are ready already to start this process of making sure that ocean literacy is not only something done bottom up by teachers or educators who are willing to do this change, but really on a structured manner. We also work a lot with schools and children from all over the world. One very successful project is the Sea Beyond project that we have been implementing in collaboration with the Prada Group. We have involved more than 1,000 students from all the 5 continents, and the good thing is that we provided some knowledge, but then we gave them the possibility to propose solutions. So again, it goes back to what I was saying. It's not only feeding people with ocean knowledge, but it's really giving them the power to use that knowledge to develop their solution. And that's, when we asked to the students and the teachers what they liked in this project, they said specifically this, is that you gave us freedom to use our creativity to develop solutions. The more and more we are working with the corporate sector, because they are really ready. They don't want to be anymore seen as the the guilty ones. They want to be part of the solution, and so we are implementing a number of projects together with a number of corporations. We are training their staff, so they are providing resources to do projects, ocean literacy project, but they also want to train their staff on ocean literacy. And I think that's the change that we are observing. We are, of course, also doing our best to engage communities around the world. We have developed a traveling exhibition on ocean and climate. By the way, if you want to have it in your country, just let me know. It is really another example of how science and art can work together, because the scientists provided information, but we work with designers, with artists to develop an exhibition that could be attractive for everyone. And I think we were kind of successful, because we had in every stop that we had more than 2,000 people coming, and we had workshop for kids and for adults. We use virtual reality, augmented reality, we use art, we use participatory science, citizen science. So really, that's why we called it Village instead of an exhibition, because it's actually a place where people meet and exchange ideas and debate issues around the sea, and to see how we can help the society reconnect with the ocean and to promote that positive change that we want to see. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm here for any question that you might have.
Thank you very much. So do we have any questions for Franscesca? Thanks a lot for a really inspiring presentation on a whole sea of change in ocean literacy and how we can move forward. Yeah, Lars.
Yeah. I was wondering what were the interactions between what you do at UNESCO and what the university do in all the countries.
Mm-hmm.
A group that structured the way that the university can participate to? Or?
Yeah, well, there are different ways in which we work with university. One example is the last one I presented, this Ocean and Climate Village. As I said, is a traveling exhibition, so everywhere we go, we partner with local universities because we want to make sure that, although we have, some already established knowledge and panels that we have, but we want to enrich every stop with local knowledge and knowledge produced by local universities. So we always partner with local universities, and also because we want to use this opportunity to inspire young students to maybe start a career in ocean science. So we also ask universities to present, some of the work they do really in the field, to make sure that the students that come to our exhibition can also get a better sense of what it means to be a marine scientist. We also have, in the context of the Ocean Literacy with All program, which is the UN Decade of Ocean Science Ocean Literacy program, we have some partners who are from universities. We don't have like a structured way for university to work with us, but we are open to any type of collaboration. And also one idea that I've been trying to pursue, but I haven't been successful yet, so maybe we can discuss this, is to create a UNESCO chair on ocean literacy. So that could be an interesting way to engage universities around the world around the topic and the approach of ocean literacy.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah,
I was expecting that. Where is she?
but it's not working.
They
No,
are.
it's fine. Franscesca,
They are sabotaging you.
Brava. Now it's super loud. Yeah, so UNESCO is very active in Cambodia since a long time, especially because of the Angkor Wat, temple and locations. But I'm not sure if you have any knowledge or memory of anything that has been done in ocean literacy. And if that's not the case, I'm gonna poke you. Meaning that in the future.
Ready to that.
Yeah?
To do that.
That
To my knowledge, no, we haven't done anything, but probably on ocean literacy, no.
Not on ocean literacy, but maybe on fisheries, right? Like inland fisheries or something?
Fisheries I cannot say because that's FAO.
Yeah.
But yesterday after your talk, I've checked if we have ever trained anyone in Cambodia, and unfortunately our database retrieves 0.
Alright.
Which was quite
So there's definitely a way.
painful to see that we've never trained anyone from Cambodia.
So I will get your both cards and we keep in touch on that. Okay? Cool.
Excellent. Thanks very much. I guess over the coffee break we can also catch up with Franscesca if you have any questions. Thanks. So to continue our session on ocean literacy and a changing blue planet, our next speaker is Marie Abels, who will talk to us about learning for deep ocean citizenship.
Hello everyone, I'm Laura and I'm very happy and proud to present the research on ocean literacy education that I did for my master research. So I conducted this research in collaboration with the Escola Azul, or like Blue School program in Lisbon. But actually my background is in communication and media, and I graduated from a program in sustainable development and social entrepreneurship in northern Germany. So I do not have to do anything with marine science per se, but I guess I start by saying that I approached this research from my own place of deep connectedness with the ocean that has shaped my perceptions of human nature and especially human-ocean relationships. And with this research, I intended to learn about the possibilities of ocean literacy education and potential solution pathways for resilient human-ocean relationships, which of course refers to the Ocean Decade Challenge 10. And I did so by collecting personal experiences of involved ocean citizens, as well as education practitioners, water sportsmen and women, fisherwomen, marine biologists, environmental psychologists, and just anyone from very diverse disciplines, meaning I took an interdisciplinary approach, which is fitting as this research can be categorized as transformative research, meaning that I hope this research contributes to solving real-life problems. So this work theoretically conceptualizes ocean literacy and deep ocean citizenship, as well as opportunities for deep learning through an interdisciplinary literature review. And based on this literature review, I collected empirical data through interviews and participant observations. And also based on the lessons learned, I did first practice basically as an ocean literacy session as a case study in a high school in Portugal. So a little bit of background, as Franscesca Santoro just explained, referred to, the UNESCO aims to upscale ocean literacy from a tool of knowledge acquisition to a whole society approach that understands citizens as engaged stakeholders and that supports society's relationship to the ocean based on a shared appreciation for the ocean environment. So, interestingly, a survey of ocean literacy definitions shows that in its broadest sense, ocean literacy concerns not only what we know, but how we feel about ocean issues of sustainability and how it affects our personal, professional lives and also the relationships with each other. And based on this effective approach to ocean literacy, scientists and practitioners argue for a paradigm shift about human-ocean relationships that demands changes also in the design approaches to ocean literacy programs. And this is grounded in an alternative form of reasoning about the role of ocean literacy education to equally promote rational and emotional learning by focusing on learners' emotional connectedness to the ocean. So based on all this, I formulated a few research goals that correspond with the ocean literacy goals and the Ocean Decade goals, and that hope to give like a very practical take on the issue. And a suitable concept that emerged from the literature review is the concept of deep ocean citizenship, which is established by marine social sciences Pamela May Buchan, who is at the University of Exeter, and she found out that motivation for ocean citizenship stems from having a positive relationship with the ocean, which grows from a positive sensory experience with the ocean. And this novel establishment of the ocean environment as a place that has particular resonance for humans contributes to her work of being of relevance to advance the ocean literacy framework. So this is the definition that is in her paper, and she looks at ocean citizenship through a wider lens of political citizenship, meaning a citizenship in practice that is granted or excluded access to by actors and institutions in power. And it encompasses active participation in problem identification and solutions development for a healthy ocean, so that ocean citizenship can be conceptualized as a real-life lived. And she defines 4 drivers, which is emotional attachment to the ocean as a place, ocean identity, self-efficacy, and knowledge. And based on the research and the collected empirical data, I would like to add 2 more, which are mental well-being of ocean citizens and blue justice. So I will further explain the drivers now, as well as suitable learning practices along with the design principles that I formulated based on the research. And for the future, I would love to collaboratively develop a more precise learning program based on these design principles. The first one is the ocean as a gift. So this principle deals with a paradigm shift in human-ocean relationships and should serve as a foundation for ocean literacy program design. And this is about the acknowledgement of the intrinsic value of the ocean as a gift rather than a resource. And this has the potential to, elicit critical reflection of current taken for granted paradigms. And this two-way character of this paradigm demands citizens to become reflexive and creative change agents who choose to positively reshape how humanity relates to the ocean in service of the planet and themselves. And here, transformative sustainability learning is a great resource because it focuses on this desired paradigm shift as it generates a reflective approach to the design of ocean literacy programs. And integrating TSL supports also the development of informed paradigms by engaging the cognitive, the psychomotor, and affective domains of learning, which are usually referred to head, hands, and heart. So the second one, the ocean as a place elicits feelings of awe, is in line with Buchan's work on ocean citizenship, meaning that also the empirical data that I collected most prominently mentions love for the ocean as people's main motivation. And maybe you can think of your own way how you ended up here and might find some love for the ocean here or there, or maybe as the main motivation. And the data underpins that emotional attachment to the ocean is the most important factor to act for the ocean, because person's motivation origins in values and also feeling emotionally touched by the ocean. Of course, there's critics who denounce ocean connectedness as a more naive approach to find more an easy fix to the complex issues around ocean health. However, based on traditional ecological knowledge, one can answer that emotional connectedness to the ocean does not equal complete harmony between the ocean and humanity, but to kind of recognize that the sea is other. So based on this otherness, on the ocean's otherness, the citizen is required to live respectfully with the ocean and to understand the limitations of these mutual relationships. And this more systemic understanding can be further elevated when the role of knowledge as a driver for ocean citizenship is defined as the synthesis of emotionality and rationality. And in that way, pure knowledge acquisition is widened to a critical reflection of the context of knowledge. And and again, through equal integration of reason and emotion, ocean literacy programs can nurture a sense of wonder and passion for lifelong learning. So deep ocean citizenship is a lived. This refers to the concept of ocean identity. So when people identify themselves with the ocean, they view their individual connections with the ocean as part of themselves, or the other way around, or themselves as part of the ocean. So research on place identity showcases the ocean's ability to build positive self-esteem as ocean citizens, feel pride and evaluate themselves based on the quality of the marine environment. And I think yesterday we heard some nice examples of exactly this. And through this self-identification with the ocean health becomes a concern for ocean citizens' personal vulnerability. And this kind of heightened importance of the ocean for the personal well-being might become a point of action. And so this way, this ocean identity forms a bridge between emotional attachment to the ocean and engaged ocean citizenship. At the same time, it's important that ocean literacy programs support the coexistence of diverse ocean identities based on a shared law for the ocean. And also we need to be aware of the societal context that can enable or disable the development of ocean identities. So this is a new driver that can be established, meaning that this mental well-being is a requirement to grant equal access to ocean citizenship participation. So meaning to deal with the full range of emotions, to uncover unmet needs of the ocean citizens, and this should be continuously integrated. So when you talk about ocean issues with children or learners of any age, asking them, how do you feel about this? Does it concern you? What comes up in your mind? And this is important to also establish self-efficacy as the importance of self-efficacy is important because only when a citizen does believe that their actions have a relevant positive impact on ocean health, they will act, otherwise they won't. And to strengthen this self-efficacy, action knowledge is a really important part, because if you show them action opportunities, like positive example that we also heard yesterday, they will know a way how to act. And this is also part of maybe a more collective approach to it. So going to the ocean together, collecting, random example, plastic maybe, but being in the ocean environment can have a healing effect for ocean and human health at the same time. So Blue Justice, it is important to collectively explore the unequal power structures within human ocean systems so that educators and learners can unmask personal collective misconceptions. And also, currently, human-ocean relationships of marginalized communities and individuals are often oppressed or disregarded. So having this awareness and putting it out there and reflecting on it with learners is really important to, for example, acknowledge traditional and ecological and indigenous knowledge and practices and include them in a form of cooperation. And the last one is, oh no, that's not this one. We all know about that one, but this one. Radical imagination refers to the development of positive future visions of the ocean, which can inspire a sense of responsibility and activeness in relation to ocean health. So there's the positive utopia method that I also did with the children in my case study, which can also be referred to, I think then when you know what I mean, dream journeys. And this is a common approach in transformative science to inspire and engage citizenship participation. So these develop positive future scenarios of the ocean are used as critical reference point to develop action strategies for real-life sustainability transitions. So this can be a collective process, and I'm happy to talk more about this, but my time is ending here. So yeah, just maybe one more thing. This also refers a lot to hope, and I feel like integrating hope, but in a sense of proactive hope, so hope as a verb, in this ocean literacy program engages students to reimagine and to feel like that they can do something. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much, Laura. So we have time for one question. Anybody has a question? Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because in Marie's thesis I found that you, like when you were just mentioning about blue justice, and how our biases influence how we see the ocean. Like I found, especially with large predators like sharks in this part of the world, there's a real like colonial and Western mindset to living in a world with animals that can harm people. I was just wondering, did you see any examples of that kind of like sense of we have to control the ocean and that kind of like we can't just let it exist in your study?
Yeah, I guess that's so. That's why I think I started with the ocean is a gift, and also referring to the ocean as other, and to just accept that there's sharks that are other than us, but at the same time that they have intrinsic value. So I think it refers to a very deep value shift and paradigm, like which is inside of us to maybe, and I think maybe these ocean connectedness, as you might feel then a connection to the shark as you learn more about it, or as you are able maybe to touch it or whatever might change this. Yeah, but I didn't have any experience with sharks in my research.
Okay, thanks again, Laura. Okay, so our next speaker in this session is Caroline Gernez from IFREMER, who's going to talk about Ecole, Bleu.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Before starting, I would like to apologize for missing the conference actually yesterday afternoon and evening. I had to do a short return trip to France due to a sad event in my family, so I think I missed several presentations related to floating universities and floating schools that probably have a link to what I'm going to say, but I'm happy to talk and chat about this during coffee break and after the conference at the end. The project I'm going to present is called Ecole Bleu Outremer, which stands for Ultramarine Blue School in English. It was originally designed by IFREMER and implemented by a large group of partners. It is endorsed by the UN Decade for Ocean Science. And it's a project which is meant to be conducted every 2 to 4 years in a different, whether in the same or probably in a different marine region. And the first edition took place last year in the Indian Ocean. So the general objectives and characteristics of the project, I will compare to other floating universities or schools projects without having heard what you said yesterday, but one of the main specificity is that the students that were on board this floating school, let's say, were coming from 3 different backgrounds. They were scientific students, but also students from an artistic background, from art schools, and also students from a maritime careers background. So this was one of the specificity and hence the interprofessional qualification of the project. Another characteristic is that the students on board were all coming from the region where the floating school took place, which is for last year the southwestern Indian Ocean region, so Réunion Island, Mayotte Island, but also the neighboring countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, maybe Comoros as well. Hence the international adjective to qualify the project. And because of this really mix of people from different geographic origins, but also from different backgrounds, the activities on board were truly interdisciplinary. So the first objective, of course, is to train and to, have these students learn something about ocean science in general. Of course, the second, if I may say, objective is to raise awareness on the variety of backgrounds and jobs and missions that all these people may have on board an oceanographic vessel, and also create awareness on the richness and the beauty of the sea around them. It was also a way for them, we understood it better afterwards, but it was also a way for them to rediscover their relation to the ocean. And through this project, we aimed at inspiring future generations from this region, but also at a larger scale, and to share knowledge and awareness on ocean sustainability issues. So the first edition took place between the end of June and the end of July last year, during 1 month. It was on board the research vessel Marion Dufresne, which is the largest oceanographic vessel among the French oceanographic fleet. It was divided into 3 parts, 3 legs. The first one departed from La Réunion Island and went to Mayotte Island. Then there was a second leg, let's say, around Mayotte Islands, because it was combined with the MAIOPS campaign. MAIOPS is the campaign which aims at observing and monitoring the submarine volcano that was discovered very recently off Mayotte. And then the third leg was simply the way back to La Réunion Island. There were 75 students participating in total over the 3 legs, And as I said earlier, they were coming from, let's say, local universities and schools. So as for the scientific students, they were coming from the University of La Réunion, the University of Mayotte, and we also worked with an association called IMBRSea, Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association. And through this association, students from the neighboring countries of the marine region were selected to participate in the project. The mariner students came also from La Réunion and Mayotte, from various schools dedicated to maritime careers. And the art students were coming also from La Réunion and Mayotte, and only two were coming from mainland France, from a design arts school based in Paris. There were also scientists and teachers on board. You can see the figure here. And what was really important to us was also to have promoters of the project and of the campaign, among a very diverse origins. We had a French skipper and entrepreneur. We had also the co-founder of Explore Funds, which is a fund that supports, let's say, exploration expeditions in the area of sustainable development. We also had a cultural figure for arts and culture in Mayotte, and three marine scientists, let's say senior scientists from Kenya, Seychelles and Comoros. And all these people were there to share the experience with the younger participants and share their experience and their knowledge about the area. There was also a communication team with two people from France Télévisions who shooted images to produce a 50-minute film, which will be released soon on French TV, and also a media man who produced short videos that were published on social networks. The activities and themes on board were organized by groups, mixed groups of students from the three different backgrounds. There were a good large number of different activities, hands-on activities, of course, on the vessel, but also conferences and presentations, not only on science, but also on cultural topics and other topics. Commented visits of the whole vessel from the very top to the very last skip of the vessel, and also some free time for the students to get to know each other and exchange. The scientific themes were very large, as you can guess, in relation with the scientific issues at stake in the region, but also a larger range of topics. The outputs so far, because some products from the project are still being under development, there were 12 short videos on IFREMER's YouTube channel and other social networks, which were also shared on partners' networks. There was a photo exhibition, or several photo exhibitions actually, in La Réunion and Mayotte. There was a stand at the IMBRSea Symposium in South Africa last October. There was a logbook. You can see the three pictures on the bottom are extracted from the logbook made by the art students from Mayotte. The 50-minute film that I already talked about, and other ongoing projects. And I have here also one of the outputs that I forgot to mention is the wish card for 2023 of IFREMER, which was illustrated by pictures and a text coming from this campaign. You have here the list of partners and sponsors. The project was organized by a steering committee led by IFREMER, but with quite a lot of partners. And we also had many sponsors, because as you can guess, it's not a cheap project. And all these sponsors were. It was really a big challenge to have them on board. Also because we had to wait until a very late moment to have a confirmation of the availability of the ship, because of well, mainly due to COVID, many campaigns were cancelled or postponed, and it was not so easy to have the right time slot to organize the campaign. You have my contact here and also the hashtag of the project if you want to see more on the social networks. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, and thanks a lot for coming back to share it. So, any questions for Caroline? Yeah.
I was wondering what was the procedure necessary for the students to participate? So do they apply, do they have to pay, and how does that work?
There was a call for applications in the various universities and schools where the students came from, and they didn't have to pay anything. The whole the budget of the project included the stay on board for all participants, actually, not only the students.
Is this project to be repeated over several years?
Yeah, it's meant to be conducted every 2 to 4 years. It is likely that in 2024 we'll organize it again in the Indian Ocean, because the participants from the first edition had many ideas actually to, and they really want to implement it again and change something and keep something, some other things similar to what I already have done. But we also think of having it organizing it in other marine regions, and I know I have a contact for Cambodia if ever we want to organize it there.
I didn't dare to ask. I was like, I just saw it.
This is why I said it.
I mean, it's not that far for somebody who goes for Antarctica. Usually, I was like, yeah, it's not that far. It's still like the same hemisphere. Okay, that would be nice.
Okay, so we have one last question. Yeah.
I was wondering, do they receive a training before going on board, or no?
No.
Or, and is it inserted in a bigger project? Do they have to collect some data, or it's just for training?
Actually, for the first edition, as I said, we were not really, we could not really control the period when it took place because of the uncertainty of the program of the ship. So it took place during the summer holidays or winter holidays for the Southern Hemisphere of the students. So it was not, there was no specific preparation, and it was not like there were no specific credits or anything to be validated. But it might change for the other editions. I don't know yet.
Is it only taught in French? Or?
This edition was taught in French. Most of the international students could understand French, so this was not a problem. But for future editions, it could be taught in English, and it could also be implemented on other than French vessels. I mean, depending on the region and the availability of ships there. So.
Super. Thanks very much. Thanks again, Karen. So our next speaker in this session is Marta Correia, who's going to talk to us about addressing ocean literacy in a changing blue planet. So over to you, Marta. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marta Correia, and I'm talking to you about CIIMAR outreach and educational problem. First of all, I'm going to explain a little bit what CIIMAR is. CIIMAR is the Interdisciplinary Center for Marine and Environmental Research that belongs to the University of Porto. And we do transdisciplinary research and technological development in the areas of marine and environmental sciences. And we try to provide innovative solutions to tackle oceans problems. We have three main research areas, these three that you have here: marine biotechnology, global changes and ecosystem services, and biology, aquaculture, and seafood quality. And I'm briefly explaining a little bit of these three areas. Regarding marine biotechnology, we look in the ocean and in aquatic organisms for new molecules that can have bioactivity and be applicated in the areas of human health, environmental areas or industrial areas, for example. In the area of biology and aquaculture, we are looking always for new species to be produced in aquaculture, and we want to improve the aquaculture that is done today. We want to improve the disease resistance of the fishes being produced in aquaculture and the animal welfare of those productions in order to produce more high quality seafood and a more sustainable aquaculture. And the third area is related to ecosystems. We work mainly with water, with aquatic ecosystems, especially saltwater ecosystems, but also with some freshwater ecosystems, and we want to understand the functioning of these ecosystems and their relation with mankind. We work a lot with pollution, aquatic pollution, plastic pollution, climate change, and those impacts in the ecosystems. Besides these three main research areas, because we are a research center, we also give a lot of importance to ocean literacy. And we have a small team working transversely with this research area in ocean literacy, because we understand that the individual perception of the ocean and the understanding of the importance of the ocean and the importance of the resources that the ocean provides is fundamental to people to create connection with the ocean and eventually take actions to protect the ocean. And having this in mind, we also notice that there are low levels of ocean literacy in the population, especially in the schools that surrounded us, and because the schools have limited marine education resources to implement at their schools. So we think that experimental and informal learning are excellent tools to improve the ocean literacy of the community that is surrounding our research center. And having that in mind, we have created an outreach program that is dedicated to the general public, from everyone, since small children to adults to families. And we have a lot of activities, different activities. One of our biggest events, or our biggest event, is our annual CIIMAR Open Day, where we open our doors to the community and we take our scientists out of the laboratories and put them in direct contact with the people. It takes place in Saturday in September, and we usually get 10,000 people a day that comes to us and to visit and to experiment the lifestyle of our Marine Research Center. We also have a lot of itinerant exhibitions. We produce exhibitions like these ones that you have here. Those exhibitions are, we have one area very important related to plastic pollution in the ocean. And for example, I don't know if you can see, sorry. This one was a series of big sculptures that were created with schools. Students produced them and we expose them in the city of Porto. And this one is with an artist that collects trash from beaches and produce these big sculptures, which we call marine monsters, and help people to see the problem of plastic pollution. We have participated throughout the year in several science fairs. Monthly we have public lectures in a museum close to us, to the general public. We also have a podcast that is endorsed by the UN Ocean Decade, and the podcast is called in Portuguese Sem Espinhas, Without Spines, and it tends to take the spines of science, so to make science easier for everyone. And we also help to give scientific advice on 2 environmental monitoring centers around us. So besides this outreach program, we also have an educational program dedicated mainly to schools. And we work with schools from the kindergarten to secondary schools. And we do a lot of different activities with them. We have guided tours to CIIMAR, so we receive the students in our research center and we show them what we do. We show them the laboratories. We they see the different researchers working on their environment, and they get to experience what is a research center and what we do. We have a lot of talks and lectures and experimental activities, hands-on activities that were developed in connection with our researchers. Those activities and those lectures are related to their research. And we also have some field activities. For example, we take the children to the beach to do a beach cleaning. We go explore the biodiversity that they found on the coastal area. We have a project connected with ponds, freshwater ponds, and we explore the biodiversity of those ponds as a living laboratory. We have also dialogues with scientists. So we connect the school with research scientists, and we engage them in a talk. And as we have created also a large amount of resources, we also have training actions to teachers, so they can use our resources on their own ways, on their schools, without having to use us, okay? So they can be independent and use those same resources. And we also produced a lot of games and some videos for YouTube for schools and for our own use. So now that I have explained you what we do, we also wanted to know if our activities had some impact, and if we could understand if they were allowing the kids to understand the importance of the ocean, and if they get to know if those activities in some way increase their ocean literacy. So we did a brief questionnaire there were two different questionnaires. One questionnaire that was given before they start any activity with us, and then we give a second questionnaire after the execution of the activities. I'm going to show you now some preliminary results, because we're starting doing these questionnaires only this school year. So those results are from November 2022, and the activities related to those questionnaires were developed either at school or on CIIMAR location. And the characterization of the students that answered these questionnaires were 78 high school students, and these two questions were only presented on the final version of the questionnaire. And one of the questions is if the activity they have developed did in any way encourage their interest in marine and environmental sciences. And the vast majority, 58%, totally agreed that that activity encouraged their interest. And we also asked them if they think it's important to enrich their knowledge about the ocean in order to communicate better and have more informed decisions about the ocean. And once again, the vast majority, 60%, totally agreed that they need to, and they think it's important to enrich their knowledge. Now I'm going to show you questions that were presented on the initial questionnaire and presented again on the final questionnaire. And one of the questions is, how important is the ocean to you? And on the initial questionnaire, 54% said that the ocean is extremely important. So there was a large number of students that already see the ocean as very important. But that number grew to the final questionnaires to 72%. So after the developing of the activities, some of those who maybe not consider the ocean so important, they passed to consider it as extremely important. We also asked them if they would like to see ocean-related topics presented in their school subjects, in their school curriculum. On the initial questionnaire, the biggest percentage was to agree, but the answers slightly changed to the final questionnaires to 58% on totally agree. So after the activity, they really understood that they need to put the ocean in their school subjects. And we also asked them if they would like to have more activities related to the ocean. Any activity. It doesn't need to be a scientific activity. It must be sailing or other activities related to the ocean. On the initial questionnaires, the answers were divided between totally agree and agree. But on the final questionnaire, 60% said they would totally agree to have more school activities related to the ocean. To conclude, we understand that these activities developed during our educational program helped the students to realize their interconnection with the ocean, and they also consider important to enrich one's knowledge about the ocean. They showed us the desire of young people to have more topics related with the ocean on their school subjects and on their school activities. Those activities also stimulated their marine and their curiosity for marine and environmental sciences, and possibly opening prospects and interests in careers related to the sea, and probably help promote ocean literacy of the young participants. So to conclude, we can say that those type of activities can be a tool to strengthen marine education and raising interest of the young peoples towards the ocean in order to help them value more the ocean and its resources. I would like to thank your attention. If you want to follow us, you have all our social media and ways that you connect with us. We are very present in all over the place. So thank you so much. And if you have any question, just let me know.
Thanks, Thank you. So any questions for Marta?
Yes, thank you. That's very impressive. So I was wondering what is the size of CIIMAR in terms of scientists, and what is the size of your communication department to do all of that?
What's the size of CIIMAR?
Yeah, the ratio of scientists versus communication staff.
The communication staff is only 4 people, okay? And we are 600 researchers spread in those 3 main research areas. So, but our researchers, throughout the years, we have trained our researchers, and they are excellent communicators. And we not only those 4 people do science communication in CIIMAR. A lot of our researchers help us with their communication with schools. They go to schools, they do talks. So I would say that most everyone is a science communicator in CIIMAR. The number of activities, I have only present the number of activities with schools, because are the ones that we can easily take a number. Last year we have 4,000 activities with schools, so it's a big number.
Yeah, another question.
It's about your answer. Have you developed any materials or any curricula for this training of the scientists that you have been doing over the years?
Well, to the scientists, right? Yes, we did regularly, we do a small training action to our scientists to how to talk in public, our language to use, how to pass their message in a way that people understand. I say one time a year we do this kind of small training action, so everyone can participate, and they also get to experience, because as they are doing it, they understand how it works better and how it doesn't work better. So I think they learn by experience also.
Okay, thanks very much, Marta.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker in this session is Rada Pandeva, who's going to talk about making marine science accessible. So, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rada Pandeva, and I'm a second-year undergraduate student in marine science at the University of Exeter. And you probably guessed already that I just presented myself in British Sign Language. And why British and not international or any other sign language, I will tell you a bit more about in a second. Right, so I am presenting today on behalf of Thalassophile Project Partnership, which consists of organizations from accessible pedagogy, but also obviously marine research and science. And those include Interchange, Istituto di Storia di Torino, apologies for my Italian, as well as our associate partners, Alfred Wegener Institute of Polar and Marine Research and Euroblind. Yes, right. So we are a small-scale partnership. We started in October 2022, so I'm just sort of pitching this new project, which you will sort of see the results of in the next couple of years. And we really got together to try and sort of talk about a little discussed aspect of marine science, which is really making it accessible to everyone, but also with a particular focus on deaf and visually impaired people. So yes, just to tell you about what, because the project is called Thalassophile Project, and you're probably wondering what does Thalassophile mean. And actually Laura touched on that very nicely, because Thalassophile is a Greek derived word which means a lover of the seas and oceans. And I have personally genuinely identified as one for as long as I can remember. And that love towards the ocean is really what has really brought me into the academic field of marine science. And I strongly believe that all of us in this room are also thalassophiles. So yes, I'm sure you can relate to this topic very much. Yes, well, the Thalassophile Project was born because we believe that the fight against climate change requires inclusivity and cooperation. And honestly, the only way you can achieve that is through making all those resources that we need, to succeed in this fight accessible to all European citizens, to all people in the whole world, including those who are disabled and sort of deaf and visually impaired. We identify a gap in the available educational material, specifically in this field, and we aim to address that information gap and to really give the competencies to adult educators to tackle those and really make their curriculums and just in general educational material more accessible. Because honestly, only by making that information accessible and we will reach the widest number of people, and that will help change and really make them able to change those behaviors for the better for our environment. And so this is where our team comes in, really, to try and sort of pitch that in. Right, how we will do this? Have 4 simple steps. If you Google right now, thalassophileproject.org, you will be able to find our theoretical framework, which is essentially this document which really talks about what sort of things you can start with. Things like, for example, color contrast on presentations. It's usually good to have sort of dark sort of text on a lighter font, on a lighter background, and vice versa, as well as things like, this is clearly for partially sighted people. That is something that would really help make it more accessible. For deaf and hard of hearing people, that would be not using jargon, speaking clearly, speaking really simplistically. There is power in simplicity. That is really, there is accessibility in simplicity, essentially. In the next, actually, a month or so, we will start creating the 4 original Thalassophile Project educational episodes, which really will be sort of hopefully engaging and inspiring to especially people who will benefit from the accessible pedagogy methods. And then in our second year, because as I said, we just started in October 2022, we will start collating our database, which you will also be able to access on the website. And that will have different sort of material collected from different organizations, just really as a guideline on how to do things in a more accessible way. just referring back to my notes so that I make sure I say everything. Yes. And in that database, you'll be able to search by, the more scientific things like marine organism, geographical area, and that sort of thing. And it will be vetted educational material, so it will have been peer reviewed, and it will be really reliable in terms of the information. And finally, we will develop 4 fact sheets which will really summarize all we have learned, because I'm also still learning. I'm very passionate about the topic, but I'm nowhere near an expert on either the accessible pedagogy or the marine science field, because I'm in the beginning of my academic journey as well. But these 4 fact sheets will really serve, as I said again, as a guideline to just help people really find their way through and making their material more accessible, and just building the resources for marine science and conservation in a better way. And those will be addressed specifically to, as we grow, we will address them to museums, NGOs, educational organizations and projects, outreach, and things like that. Honestly, all the people that really tackle ocean literacy. And this comes under the UN Oceantraining Challenge 9, which Dr. Franscesca talked about, which is very crucial thing, as you can imagine, because the ocean, I don't need to repeat what everybody has said in the past 3 days, that the ocean is just inextricably linked, everything is linked, we are all linked through it as well, and that's why I strongly believe that everybody needs to have access to that, no matter their background, no matter their abilities. And there are examples of this. Dr. Caroline Solomon, she is an American scientist, and she lost her hearing when she was very young, but she's a massive advocate for people, for hard of hearing and deaf people going into STEM subjects specifically. So it can be done. And actually, to quote her here, when she presents herself to her students, she always says, "Hi, I'm Caroline, and I got my bachelor's from Harvard." And she says, "If I can do it, you can do it." So I think that is really inspirational. It really it's backing up what we're doing. Yes, well, challenges. Unfortunately, not everything is that straightforward, and obviously we're going to have some challenges here and there. And to go back to my point, why I present myself in British Sign Language and not in any other sign language, I'm Bulgarian, for example. Well, because actually sign languages differ depending on the country. So if Bulgarian sign language will be similar to Bulgarian spoken language, but obviously it will differ in its structure. And let me give you an example. I presented myself like this, and this means, literally means name me what, and then I spelled my name, Rada. So it's not the same structure as a spoken English language, which as you can, that's why I talked about simplicity, because it's not sort of a straightforward process. So you have a challenge in that field that, you have to really have the experts, the interpreters, to really sort of fact check and to review and make sure that everything is sort of done in sort of the best standard possible. Also, yes, spoke about the structure of the sentence, the different languages. Also, just in the audio files and specifically for visually impaired people, as I said, clear language is genuinely a key. And we talked about making science, more accessible in simplest terms, especially people who are not from the fields of research, and that is really the best way to tackle that. And you can join us, and we would love you to join us, and I invite you to join us. You can peer review that theoretical framework that I mentioned. It is a PDF sort of link. You can open it, sort of read through it, and see the sort of things our partners from the Turin Institute of Deaf People have developed for us. And you can tell us about the tools you use to make your educational material, and just in general how you make your organization more accessible to everyone, really. How do you make your material more accessible? And also, probably most importantly, you can send us accessible material to upload to that database that I talked about, which we are starting to collate soon. because this is really sort of a joint project with everyone here, and I imagine more people to come one day. And I think, as I stressed enough already, this is a very important thing to try and do. Yes, and last but not least, you'll be able to follow us on social media and share the original Thalassophile Project podcast episodes that we develop when we develop, which will be in the next few months. And just before I leave you, I just wanted to leave you with a quote that I was listening to Laura and to all the previous talks, and as well to Dr. Franscesca. Nemonte Nemkimo, she's a Waorani leader from the Amazon basin, and in her letter to the Western world, it was an article in The Guardian a while ago. She says, the less you know about something, the less value it has to you, and the easier it is to destroy, which I think really nicely summarizes what ocean literacy is really all about, and also really underlines why it has to be accessible to the widest number of people possible. Yes, I think I probably might have missed some points, but you're welcome to ask me questions because I believe we have time for those. So thank you very much for your attention. Finished very quickly.
No, you're good. Thanks, Maria. So we have a question here from Franscesca.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, more than a question, really, I would like to commend this work because it's really crucial, and also we are trying to develop some more accessible ocean literacy resources, in particular in relation to the exhibition that I was mentioning in my presentation. We're going to have a new stop soon in Naples, and we would really like to develop our resources in a more accessible way. So I would really be pleased to get in touch with you and see how we can, collaborate and really make sure that this work becomes more mainstream. That is not something that is done by one or two people, but it is always something that we think about when we develop our ocean literacy project. So again, really commending your work.
Thank you. Would love to collaborate.
Any other questions? Yeah, Franscesca.
Yeah, I guess it's always very, I guess on the same line, I just wanted to say thank you for also raising the awareness. I mean, we're often having a taboo, I think, because of the same reasons. We are not aware of it, and when it's something sensitive, we're also a little bit scared of making the wrong comment, making the wrong question. So I think it's very important that you literate us as well about these minorities in a form.
Yep.
So for some minorities we are more aware of, but when it comes to, let's say, handicaps or inabilities, disabilities, to something that for us is so natural, I think it brings another kind of taboo, shame, shyness, which is good to get us into it. And yeah, that's very, very interesting. I myself might not be aware that I always try to use colorblind palettes when I make presentations or things like that, but I might myself not be aware of some of the inabilities of my students, including, for instance, autism spectrum.
Yep.
And so yeah, it's good that you guys literate us as well sometimes. So the fact sheets, I will look them up.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, they'll be coming up in the next year in a bit.
Yeah, that's going to be really useful. So thank you very much for the work, Rada.
No other questions? I just had one comment because I think it has come up a little bit during the meeting that a lot of us are talking about these different databases of resources that we want to set up, and I think it's great that you've highlighted accessible resources, and of course I know that your database is going to be really accessible as well, but I think we all need to have a conversation about these databases and where they're going to be and how many there are going to be, or if we can minimize that and making them all accessible. And it's something that will come up again in the closing remarks, but it's good to highlight it here too.
Yes.
So
Thank you
thanks very much.
Thank you. So for our final full presentation, and we'll follow with one flash presentation after this, so our final full presentation in this session is from Gaia Maria Sole Intonti, also based at IOC-UNESCO, and she's going to talk about knowledge and perceptions of marine protected areas. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. As a former IMBRSea student, I'm very happy to present my thesis that investigated the socio-ecological factors and a temporal comparison of Italians' knowledge and perceptions about marine protected areas. So probably there's no need to remind why marine protected areas are so important, but it's always nice to recall. Of course, they represent a super effective tool to maintain and restore the ocean health that is essential to provide the marine ecosystem services that allow human benefits and economic services and so on. This is the reason why many policy frameworks like the UN Ocean Decade, the MSFD, also the COPs meetings aim to increase the number and effectiveness of marine protected areas, aiming to reach the 30% of full coverage protection within 2030. As scientists and marine biologists, we tend to focus more on the ecological knowledge and the ecological point of view of marine protected areas, but it has been proven how for their effectiveness the social context and social support are just as relevant. So that is why ocean literacy is a very effective tool to raise awareness and social engagement, and possibly to increase the emotional bond towards the ocean ecosystem, and possibly to trigger pro-environmental behaviors. So I chose Italy as case study because it's the heart of the Mediterranean Sea that is known to be a very important biodiversity hotspot. And it's also subject to a huge anthropic pressure due to different economic activities, and also the Mediterranean represents an area that suffers a faster climate change compared to the rest of the ocean ecosystem, global ocean, I would say. Also, in Italy we have an important intangible cultural heritage related to the sea, so cultural, traditional, and also maritime economic activities that are very important for this country, such as tourism and fisheries. And also we have a strong coastal urbanization and high population density among the coast, representing the perfect example for a socio-ecosystem that needs an integrated approach to be managed in a proper way. So, to give some numbers, Italy has almost 8,000 kilometers of coastline, representing the 6% of European coastal areas. We have 3 types of marine protected areas, but for this research I focused on the fully established ones, that up to date we can count 29 of them. And 2 underwater parks, and also the sanctuary of cetaceans that is shared with the French government for a total protection of 228 hectares of marine areas. So this research wanted to investigate mainly if the proximity to the coast is a factor correlated to marine protected areas public knowledge and support, and if there has been an increase in environmental awareness from 2014 to 2021. Since ocean education and ocean literacy are quite an emerging field, I thought that it would be interesting to make a vertical study to see if this is actually getting more resonance in the public, and I used the data provided by a non-published study of my thesis promoter, Professor Carlo Cerrano, and through this, the survey I made, I also had more insights about people's perceptions, behaviors, and sources of information related to marine protected areas. As material and methods, I used an online questionnaire made of 22 questions to investigate socio-demographic profiles, knowledge, behaviors. The data collection was carried out for 1.5 months through through snowball sampling method. And then the data analysis, I mainly performed non-parametric statistical analysis due to the low comparability of the two samples that I considered. And then, yeah, I did the analysis with TIBCO Statistica, but it's not very important. So, the socio-demographic profiles, I investigated the gender, age, educational level, monthly income, and if there was any hobby related to the sea, also to assess the emotional value that each of us can give to the ocean. And to avoid any bias, I decided to not include in my samples all the people that had a job related to marine sciences. In order to assess the representativity of my samples, I compared the total number of interviewees, so 893 people, with the National Statistical Institute of Italy. And I could see that the sample from 2014, probably because it was also bigger, the data collection was performed for 7 months, so the sample, yes, was bigger, and it was more representative regarding the sex ratio, the average age, and the distribution of population, while both the samples are not really representative of Italian population because I had higher educational levels in both cases, and also the population distribution wasn't really in line with the actual population distribution. So then I investigated the factual knowledge related to marine protected areas, so which is the closest MPA to your municipality, and can you name 3 MPAs that you know of? And from this table you can see that in 2021 the factual knowledge actually increased because they didn't do as many mistakes as the sample from 2014. And in both cases, the most popular MPAs were Cinque Terre, Portofino, and Tremiti Islands. And this was interesting because if you see the distribution of the respondents, the first 2 most popular MPAs are here in Liguria, so they quite follow the distribution of the interviewees. But Tremiti Islands is in Puglia, so it didn't really follow the interviewees distribution. So we had an increase in factual knowledge of established MPAs, but I couldn't really understand why Tremiti Islands was that popular in the end. So I investigated also the possible influencing factor related to marine protected areas popularity, such as the year of institution, the extent, the presence of websites, social media platforms, and engaging activities for citizens. Then I investigated the self-assessed knowledge regarding MPAs, so related to ecological and social effects, and also, as we talked already about, the emotional value, how important is the sea for you, and also the perceptions towards marine protected areas, such as restrictions, costs, and services. And here it was a Likert scale question, so the sentences highlighted in red are the ones that show the highest significant difference. And again, in 2021, there was an increase in these, in the knowledge regarding the ecological role of marine protected areas, such as the importance of them for survival of marine organisms, but also the importance of MPAs to mitigate human impact, climate change, and the importance for inspiration, creativity, and so on. Then the contribution to marine environment, as personal behaviors towards the marine ecosystem, including questions like waste management, seafood consumption, or in general the approach you have when you visit a coastal area. And again, the sample from 2021 show a greater awareness and more ocean-friendly behaviors compared to the previous sample. Then I investigated the willingness to pay because I think it's a very, it's not that I think, it was proven to be a very important tool to assess the ecosystem services valuation, basically, that is needed as an approach for marine spatial planning, political decision making, and also fundraising initiatives for environmental projects. And again, the sample from 2021, even though it was actually poorer in general compared to the previous sample, they showed a greater willingness to pay for an extra cost to visit MPAs. And from a qualitative point of view, the sample from 2014 claimed very little trust towards national governments and management bodies, meaning that there's the need to show where the money would go to in the end. Then here I investigated the ascription of responsibility, meaning who should take care of marine environment. Oh, 1 minute. Oh, okay. Again, 2021 showed higher levels of both individual and collective responsibility. Main sources of information, because I think it would be interesting to understand which channels of outreach we should use better. And in 2021, again, the social networks showed a huge increase as a source of information. Then I wanted to significant correlations. So proximity to the coast was had a correlation with knowledge, support, and willingness to pay. Then
That's a decision.
And then the MPA's agreement was linked to the knowledge about ecological benefits, meaning that when people know what MPAs are needed for, they support it more, and also the implementation, and also correlation between local, national, and European governance. So we need more cooperation and more ocean literacy for policymakers. Sorry. Youth-centered educational programs, as we talked about in these days, might be also a reason why the sample from 2021 showed a greater involvement in environmental topics and increased every other value that I investigated. And so both the hypotheses were sustained, so we need more ocean literacy, especially in landlocked countries. And then, challenges and key objectives are quite overlap, I would say. But for example, communication is a key element that we need to develop properly for the different target audience. And in order to make it more engaging and to involve better citizens and stakeholders in every phase of the MPA's design, implementation, and monitoring. So, thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Gaia. So we have time for one quick question. Yeah.
Thank you for the work, and I have a question.
Yes.
Can you show me again the maps of the distribution of your questionnaires?
Yes.
From the two different years. Yeah. 2014, 2021.
Basically, they followed the as I used in both samples. It was used as noble sampling method. It's more the higher density is linked to where the study started from. So in 2014 from Ancona, the University of Marche. And then in 2021, I'm from Turin, so I asked friends and family and the snowball sampling method.
Just because I think there can be as well some north-south differences.
Yeah.
In the accessibility of certain activities, also just economically, like how much money is actually given to a specific type of outreach activities on the sea, and then as well the trust in institutions. You know, I mean, there may be also some differences depending on the local conditions. So I just wanted to ask you if you took into account that when I saw that data.
Yes, I mean, I was the only one at last cohort to investigate the ocean literacy topics. So I realized that just afterwards that I took too many topics altogether. So
Yeah.
I would need to restructure my study in order to really take into account also the diversity of distribution.
Yeah,
and
of course, especially if you also ask about willingness to pay. I mean, depending on the economy of the background families, the economy of the localities.
Yeah.
I mean, we have still, unfortunately, quite some differences across
Yes.
our peninsula, we know that. But super interesting, and yeah, thank you very much to show
Thank you
this.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Claire.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and whatever.
Okay, so now we will have one flash presentation before the coffee break, as mentioned. So the first flash presentation is from Agnese Riccardi from Ancona. And just after the flash presentation, please don't everyone move, because we want to get a group photo before you get coffee. So we're really holding you back, but please wait. One quick group photo, you'll just stay in your seats. But for now, over to Agnese. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience in waiting the coffee break. I'm presenting to you the Balance Project as a small part of my PhD program. The urgent need to protect and use our ocean in a sustainable way requires, of course, new strategies to engage communities in fostering ocean literacy and rediscovering humans' connection with the marine environment. And towards this direction, citizen science initiatives have often proved to be a successful choice in the development of a new generation that acquires true ocean citizenship. And despite the well-known importance to have a sea literate new generation, schools in many European countries mostly do not address marine sciences in their curricula, not even in Mediterranean countries. So the Balance Project wants to raise awareness about ocean literacy principles, increase commitment and stimulate pro-environmental behavior. And beaches and rocky tide pools are accessible coastal habitats that can represent ideal models to easily connect people to the sea world. And we want to engage teachers and students in applying the citizen science protocol and evaluate changing consciousness, submitting the participants before and after the activities. The final goal is to help in the definition of ad hoc curricular proposal for ocean literacy in schools. A pilot study at the Marconi High School in Pesaro, Italy has already begun. And the students have had the opportunity to join a supplementary course in marine sciences, set up with both indoor and outdoor activities. And the outdoor activities are made also with a citizen science protocol application promoted by the Czech Mediterranean Association, and allows participants to collect data in situ and then upload them into an online repository. The course is carried out 2 hours per week from November 22 to the end of the academic year, and the first group of participants, named Group A, has already been submitted to the pre-questionnaire, the pre-survey, and on March 2023 also the Group B will join and will be submitted to the pre-post questionnaires to highlight any possible differences between the two pairs. To allow comparison with other studies, the International Ocean Literacy Surveys is used for the investigations, plus another tailored questionnaire more focused on the changing in behavior and commitment towards ocean. Analyses are still in progress, of course, but first results show that only the 60% of the students have someone in the family related to a maritime job. But they all have chosen this course within other proposal of the school, so they probably have a particular interest in the subject already. Despite that, only the 39% of the questions were answered correctly by a high number of students, and the concept that appear mostly misunderstood concern the use of marine resources, the biodiversity importance, and the ocean's role for life and ecological processes. So these results shown us the gaps in fundamental knowledges and highlight the needs, in my opinion, to keep working on a cultural ecological transition. So that's it for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnese. So we have time for one or two questions. Yeah, Franscesca.
Thank you, Agnese. I think you would, and you already briefly mentioned that you are adding more questions related to behavioral change. I would encourage you also to include like the emotional part, and I would invite you to have a look at what UK is doing in terms of their ocean literacy survey. I can provide you, of course, the reference because they are including other dimensions to ocean literacy, which is more related probably to what, sorry, I forgot the name, the second speaker after me spoke, which is really important. And the International Ocean Literacy Survey mainly focuses on knowledge assessment, which is, of course, a part of ocean literacy, but it's not that part. And also maybe encouraging to get in touch with some other colleagues of mine who are doing similar work in the south of Italy. Incredibly, we do things in the south of Italy. That's a project that we do on replanting Posidonia oceanica, and we work also with students and high school students, merging, what we do in terms of technical and scientific work and engaging with school students.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to, and I will just show you. Maybe it's not possible. These are an example of draws from children of primary school, and I think that it's not necessary to explain these two drones. I mean, this is before and after the activities on the beach and on rock pools, and the kid changed completely the perception of the marine environment. So I think that it's a very good example of what we are trying to do. Okay.
Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for staying put. Please, we will set up the camera very quickly. In the meantime, I'd just like to thank all speakers this morning so far. So, and we'll continue with the ocean literacy team after the coffee as well. So just stay put for the photos, please. Yeah, just stay, please. It's going this way. So we'll put it on the computer after.
David, you're not going to be in the picture? Can you not just put it on one of those tripods up high into the set timer?
I know, but this will be faster. People want coffee.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
We have a few empty seats here. If people, Mario, come on, you have to be here.
Give us the 1, 2, 3, something like that.
1, 2, 3. Cheese. Coffee.
So we have a break now until 11:15. 11:15.
You can check now.
It was this one here. The presentation is with it, but
If it's a PDF, then you will have to make an. That's all I have online. Then you have to check the audio, or just bring the presentation and put it on. If you can quickly do that, that's also fine.
And you will send me the session.
I actually don't have an SD card. We're not doing that.
I'm just going to check this out because I'm about to present. So I'll just stand there for a second and then you should pretend and just visualize. You've only got 3 minutes each. Oh my gosh, no, I'm shit. There we go, okay. Hold on. Check to check.
So for the next session, still on ocean literacy in a changing blue planet, we have a series of flash presentations. The first speaker in this session is Lisa Picatto from Ghent University, who's going to talk to us about an IMBRSea module that she was recently involved in. So over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just let you take your places. Right, hello everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm also an IMBRSea student, second year, and today I will talk to you about the IMBRSea module on ocean literacy and marine education, the main outcomes and the student perspectives. So first of all, you heard so much about IMBRSea. It actually stands for International Master in Marine Biological Resources. It's a joint master program. There's 11 partner universities, and look at all these people. So in our second year, there's currently 114 students. Keep the students in mind, because out of all these 114 second year IMBRSea students, only 11 of those chose the ocean literacy module. And this is what that percentage looks like. So moving on, I'm just gonna explain the title in this brief 3 minutes. So from IMBRSea module to the actual module on ocean literacy and marine education, it was organized by Sorbonne University, and it was divided into 3 units. First one, ocean literacy principle, which was also organized by MC. Second one, education in marine sciences, organized by Ghent. And third one was applied marine outreach, in which we just got all the notions that we learned in the other 2 units and put them together in lots of cool projects. So, what are the cool projects, you ask? The main outcomes are that we developed a bunch of educational activities for lots of target audiences. For example, you heard yesterday about floating universities. We developed a website for teachers about the Indian Ocean Basin, and that was done with the Monaco Oceanographic Museum and in partnership with Monaco Exploration. We also developed a workshop for children, which was tested also at the Monaco Oceanographic Museum with local kids about the same journey. And lastly, we developed a game on the ocean literacy principles. Okay, so another big takeaway is the creation of an Instagram account aimed at communicating our journey in marine science outreach. We called it Ocean Literacy Agents, OLA for short, and we created it to bridge the gap between science and academia in general, and then the general society. But also, we really wanted to show our peers what was happening in our semester, because it was the first time that this type of semester was organized. And lastly, we're coming to the student perspective. So we were really beyond enthusiastic that IMBRSea was offering a module in which science and communication were so tightly interlinked. And even if the semester is over, of course, we want to keep our OLA account up and running to communicate all our further journeys in science, starting with our master theses. And why, you ask? Well, the idea is that at least one more of those 114 students that you saw in the first picture could really understand how important it is to us and for everyone ocean literacy, and perhaps get inspired to pursue this type of career. And this is a little contribution to raise awareness on this topic, but you are such a knowledgeable audience, so please, any question or feedback are welcome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. Great initiative. Any questions for Lisa? We have time for 1 or 2.
Thank you for sharing your work with us and for the nice presentation. How did you come up with the idea of this Instagram account?
Okay, so the projects that I talked about before were also part of the curricular expectations, so they were graded. But this Instagram initiative, we came up with it ourselves. We had a super inspired talk with Peter Taddenham, and after that, we just really wanted to share with our peers through social media and perhaps even more people what we're doing. So this is how it came about, and yeah, we really loved the idea, and we really plan to keep going with it.
Was there one more question? Yeah, I think there's one question.
Well, no, I had a quick question. So why do you think there were only 7 students among the 130? And what is the role of ocean literacy at the university level?
Okay, I think, well, I was really thinking about this question, so why do the numbers speak in the way that they do? So like, why so little people chose it? And I think ocean literacy is definitely important. It's perhaps still not yet so known within our master specifically, but in general. So I think also coming back to our Instagram initiative, like the idea of really reaching out and communicating what we've been doing, I think it's going to be beneficial also for further students to then go into the master knowing that this is a possibility. And also this one, it was the first time that we did this semester, so it was, well, yeah, the pilot one, and we hope that it's just going to grow more and more.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Thank you. So our next speaker in this session is Dr. Rita Blanos, who's going to talk to us further about engaging with the public. So thanks, Rita.
Thank you. Hello to everybody. This will be a very flash presentation because I have to catch a plane. No, this is live. I need to leave to see a friend before catching the plane. She lives in Brussels and I haven't seen her for ages. So, I'm Rita from the press office of the National Institute of Oceanography and Applied Geophysics, and I will briefly talk you about a festival, Science and Art Festival, to promote the ocean literacy. As we all know, the United Nations declared the 2021-2030 as the decade for ocean sustainability, for ocean science for sustainability development. So we have 10 years to promote ocean literacy to governments, scientists, people, and the public sector. To promote ocean literacy and raise awareness to citizens, the OGS organized for 2 consecutive years the MareDireFare festival, means see, say, do. The first edition was held in Trieste, and the main event was a festival that was focused on the micro environment of oceans and why this is important for sea life. We also organized more than 50 public events where 18 young artists were involved, and they delivered 40 art pieces. Maybe some of you now will wonder why the hell the master has helped me. What's the master? The master is the name of the master. It's a film. It's a movie. The Alien. Okay, that's correct. So exactly, what the hell alien is there? Because this is a good question, and I searched on Google. So I read. It seems that illustrator of Alien was inspired by a microcrustacean that is called Phronima sedentaria, found in oceans at a depth of up to 1 kilometer. And this guy is pretty bad. Okay, it seems to be pretty bad because the worst of the parasites. Because not only he kills zooplankton, but he penetrates inside the body, and then he used the external part of the body. He first eat the soft tissue, and then he used this body, this external part of the body, to depound the eggs. So it's a bad guy. This is just a short promo video, 25 seconds. Oh no. Okay, no access. You can check it on the website of the project. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, it's a very nice video. The second edition was held in Trieste in the spring of 2022. It was focused on ocean literacy, the 7 principles of ocean literacy. We made a national call for 7 artists that made 7 illustrations each, so we have 39 illustrations in total. Plus 1 comic book that you can find in the website of the project. Unfortunately, it's just in Italian, but the pictures are very nice. so you can take a look. We organized 7 exhibitions in bookstores, libraries, museums to engage the public, not only in Trieste, but in other 2 places in the region of the Friuli Venezia Giulia. Stay tuned for the 3rd edition of the festival. It will be organized in the spring of 2023. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rita. So we have time for one question.
Not about alien.
Anybody has a quick question? No. Actually, a small plug, but I did have an old conversation article, so on conversation.com you'll find an article about Frauneimer there, and parasites are wonderful.
Yes, I love them.
But any question for Rita before she runs to catch a train? No? Okay, well, thanks again, Rita.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, so our next speaker in this session is Jake Keast from the University of Exeter, and he's going to talk about ocean literacy and pro-environmental behaviours in blue space sport enthusiasts. So thanks, Jake. Over to you.
Can I get the first
Thank
name
you.
again so I can fast-click and duplicate these?
Hi there.
Or did you take it?
I just want to say first of all, thank you for so many inspirational talks. And it's been really interesting. I've not been in this field very long to sort of see everything that's going on. And I'm kind of approaching this one from a less formal ocean education kind of tactic, but how we as athletes and ocean enthusiasts maybe can engage in other ways of ocean education. So, yeah, so this is kind of on a project around ocean literacy rates and pro-environmental behaviours among ocean athletes and enthusiasts. So again, I primarily work as a medical student, but I'm also a triathlete with Team GB, and I'm a performance coach around that. So again, I feel a little underqualified to be telling yourselves what ocean literacy centres around, but I can highlight anecdotally and with increasing scientific evidence, kind of those associations that we've seen between pro-environmental behaviours or blue spaces and pro-environmental behaviours. So this isn't a new phenomenon, however. Many organisations, particularly in the UK, I'm not as certain in Europe, but have been trying to drive for change coming from the ocean. So societies like Surfers Against Sewage, Blue Flag Beaches, which aims to promote those beaches most inclined to sort of conservation practice. And then on a more individual level, people such as Eski Britton, she's a world-class surfer who goes around making change in more marginalised communities around the world. But if you take that and you take ocean enthusiasts and athletes, so triathletes, sailors, surfers, you consider the kind of typical adoption curve, and why do we not maybe do more to empower outside of formal education those most affiliated and emotionally connected to the ocean? And it's something that I've seen firsthand. I've been lucky enough to race in locations around the world. And I regularly see quite unknowing event organisers. They tick corporate boxes, but they often don't have the insight to utilise the environments and implement best practices as well as they could. So yeah, I regularly come across these communities of motivated, positive and kind of sustainably orientated enthusiasts who are looking for change. And it's all a very good thing. Ocean tourism and sports around the ocean are massively increasing. And as accessibility increases, kind of the physiological, psychological, social and cultural benefits are all propagated. But it does also offer that increased opportunity for grassroots dissemination and a bottom-up approach to ocean education. But in triathlon itself, and again in sports around it, we tread very close to that line between sustainable practice and how we use the ocean. So it's not to say that triathlon isn't sustainably focused, but in a report done by World Triathlon, even they acknowledged that more can be done within sporting communities to pioneer a sustainable future. Kind of as literally thousands of people descend on an athlete village, or they travel globally for events and often to areas of extreme natural beauty. If we do implement more positive actions, they could go a very long way. So the value of the kind of project itself is that we've seen the correlation between blue space and pro-environmental behaviours, and using questionnaires and surveys similar to those shown, it would be good to kind of direct further research and give opportunity to reinforce what we know, and then use that to direct further ocean literacy and education projects. But so what would we do with that information? Well, there's kind of an end goal to create an oceans accreditation scheme. So for example, in the UK, there are over 700 triathlon clubs with an average of sort of 70 members. And if we can create an accreditation scheme or a CPD course that could be disseminated through national governing bodies, it would mean that a club could become Bleu accredited or Oceans accredited, and then that would be a sort of recognition that they are promoting sustainability and ocean literacy within their clubs. And then the final part to that is that we have so many positive role models and people with large reach, and so they use the ocean and blue spaces regularly, both in training and racing, and they can be used as excellent role models for not only the health and well-being of us as humans, but for the health and well-being of our ocean as well. And so it was quite informal, but and it's quite a new project. I've been working on it for a few months, but if you've any kind of thoughts, ideas, and for those who've been developing courses already, yeah, I'd love to connect and learn more. So.
Thanks. Okay, so we have time for one quick question, and there's somebody waiting there. Thanks, Christina.
I have a suggestion. In general, during training, the swimmers have a tracker, and the tracking is a geo-reference in general. And a suggestion could be if the swimmer notices something on the shallow waters or on the surface, particular species or marine debris, something special, they could take note. Of course, they should be trained to identify the species or the marine litter, but I think that they could contribute in by citizen science to the discovery of biodiversity, monitoring biodiversity.
Massively so, yeah. And kind of the education of clubs would try and involve that. I mean, a lot of these communities, they use the ocean, but they don't understand too much about it, and so giving them opportunity to learn and then engaging in that way would be really good.
Super. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Yeah, just need to put it here.
So this is cancelled today. So sorry. Yeah. And then Eva. Okay, so our next speaker in this session is Jay Uge, and I'll pass over to Jay to introduce your topic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Jean Eugène indeed. I work at VUB, at the ULB and the Open University of the Netherlands, and I'm here to present the Mango Play, which is a serious game, a role play that has been developed within the frame of the Tropimundo program and the Oceans and Lakes program by Farida Dugabas and myself and some colleagues. Some of these colleagues are actually present here. Caroline van Peuvelde is here, and some are following online, like Diana Di Nito, for example. So first of all, mangroves. We haven't heard a lot about mangroves. Well, I didn't attend all the talks, sorry for that, but most of them. And mangroves are these forests in tropical areas in the intertidal area between land and sea. So they are situated at this interface, which means that they're also subject to lots of competing claims, land use claims and sea use claims. Because as you all know, coastal areas are very popular among human beings, all of us. So it creates a lot of pressure on the environment at these coastal areas. Mangroves provide a lot of benefits to people. The ones that are mostly talked about are coastal protection against tidal waves or tsunamis, for example, but also sea level rise, and then carbon sequestration. So this heavy human pressure on mangroves mean that they are under threat, although the recognition of the importance of mangroves is growing. So we wanted to make students learn about the multiple perspectives that stakeholders can have when they look at mangroves. They expect different things from these mangroves. Here you can see some nice images of the tropical imagery of mangroves. So what we did, we developed this mango play, role play simulation of mangrove decision making. So that's a fictive village, 3 villages around a mangrove. So the green, light green and dark green shades, these are the mangroves. Then there's the agricultural land behind that. And then when you come towards the sea, of course the blue is the sea, you have lots of aquaculture ponds and you have a creek, a river with an estuary reaching the sea in the mangrove. So it's kind of like a typical mangrove situation. We actually drew from our experience in different countries, mainly in East Africa, but also in Malaysia and Sri Lanka, where we learned a lot about these mangroves. So all these is supposed to represent kind of a real life situation. All these images here also give you the impression of all the different stakeholders that are present in mangrove environments. So the government, of course, but also aquaculture workers, large scale or small scale aquaculture operators, tourists also, beekeepers, fishermen, etc. So that's the actual play. It looks a little bit complicated. To make it clear, like the size and the scale of such a game is like 5 hours minimum without the preparation. So for the students, what we mostly do is like a full day mangrove play. So before they start the game, what we do is we assign different students to being different stakeholders. So one student will be, for example, the government. Most of them are like small groups. So one group of students is the government. Another group of students is, for example, the scientists or the media, etc., etc. So what they do is they get an outline. So what does the media do? What does the government do? And then they have to develop a profile into more detail. That's part of the preparation, what happened before. So the profiling is when you really think and look up in actual scientific literature, for example, what governments typically do in mangrove environments. Then they share their profiles. They say, okay, this is who we are. These are our characteristics. And they share that with all the other stakeholders in the game. Then there's the budgeting, which means that every stakeholder can decide how much of the 100% funding that is available, let's say in society, will go to which stakeholder. So there also we encourage them to be realistic. So probably it's not realistic to think that 90% of the funds will go to the local environmental NGO. So we make this kind of average, and then you come with this kind of budgeting, which is also participatory in a way. Then there's point E, engaging and interviewing. Come back to that later. That's actually when they start talking to each other to get to know each other a little bit better before they start the actual negotiation. So that's the during phase, so that's the actual game. So the first phase is actually when there is no interaction and the government presents a bill, a proposal. For example, the government says, we are going to develop aquaculture in that area. We're going to double the number of aquaculture ponds. So that's the proposal. And then every stakeholder has to vote against or for that. And they negotiate while doing that. In the second phase, they interact, so they discuss with each other and they try to form these coalitions. Because maybe some stakeholders want to go against the government decision, so they have to form coalitions and learn to negotiate. In phase 3, the master of ceremony, which is mostly Farid, myself and some colleagues, we stage some surprise events. For example, we introduce corruption or the threat of violence by some of these stakeholders. It's not just a threat, we don't do that, of course. And then what also happens is that some of these stakeholders stage demonstrations themselves. So they start shouting in the classroom, calling for mangrove protection, for example. And then in the last phase, stage 4, we actually give them money. So it's the Banca del Manglar, which gives money to the different stakeholders, and they can use that money. Like, for example, for corruption, which we do not encourage, but it does happen in real life, of course, but also to forge these coalitions and to make sure that, they can win the vote, basically. And after that, we have a reflection and, of course, some analysis. But I can give you more data if you want to. So these stakeholders are very diverse. The objective is really to get a sense of what a real-life mangrove decision-making situation is like. And if you want to know more about it, you can either talk to me, or you can just go to this open access paper in Frontiers in Marine Science, in which we have outlined the full mangrove game. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions, but I think you can catch up with Jean after the session, hopefully. Thank you very much.
There's time for questions.
Oh, is there? Oh,
We're
perfect, technology. So if there are any questions, our next speaker is online. There's a slight change in the program. We have one more speaker online and then one more person in presence at the end. In the meantime.
Just one question. You have tested it with science students, or have you ever tested with other groups of people like, I don't know, administrators or fishermen or...
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so far we have only tested it with students who have, of course, like a particular interest in ocean and marine science. So we've tested it with approximately 500 students in total until now. But what we want to do is actually test it with real-world players, like real-world fishermen, real-world aquaculture workers. And we really plan to do that. So Farid and I are trying to organize that. It's not that easy to do, because of course you require like almost a full day. So we try to do that in a community where we already know the people, and also tell them that it's just a game. but we really want to do that.
And maybe simplify it for some.
Yeah, absolutely, because now it's really, it's quite complicated, especially these profiles of stakeholders. We use a lot of jargon. We ask the students to reflect on their adaptability, their resilience, their transformability, etc. So yeah, it's an educational tool for students as it is now, but I think it can be used in a slightly simplified version on the field, which is what we intend to do sometime. Yeah.
Is there any other question? Yeah, yeah, no problem.
I was wondering if your target public is Belgian students, for instance, why not work inside marshes?
Yeah, okay, good question. Well, of course, Belgian students are present in our master programs, but the target groups are really international students. So especially the Tropimundo master is specifically about tropical ecosystems. And then the oceans and lakes students, well, they're also very diverse. So many of them also come from southern countries. But we could think of developing something similar on salt marshes. But we use mangroves, well, not only because of our target group, but also because it's the ecosystem we know best, because we've done a lot of research on it.
Just briefly, I think we still have time for one question.
Okay.
You mentioned reflection and analysis at the end as well. I was curious what the feedback has been and what the students are telling you about it and how that has informed if you've adapted it or changed it.
Yeah. Well, for this reflection, we asked students to have like a one-page reflection. So like, what did they learn and what did they like and dislike about it? For the development, we always try to improve the game every time we play it. And then for the analysis, what we try to do is also to develop a social network analysis. So see in this simulation how many times each stakeholder interacted with what other stakeholder and what kind of interaction they had. And when it comes to, well, maybe anecdotal evidence of what students get out of that, well, most of them are really enthusiastic. They always say they lack time. And often the stakeholders, the government stakeholders, so the students who are in that group, they often say at the end, I never want to go into politics, because you have to balance the interests and the objectives of all these other stakeholders. And you cannot really have your own opinion. So in that sense, I think it's kind of realistic. That's one of the feedbacks we get.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Should be there.
Okay, so our next speaker I'm delighted to present is Dr. Eva Garcia-Vazquez from the University of Oviedo, and Eva is going to present to us online and talk about fighting marine pollution. So over to you, Eva. Hopefully you can hear us okay.
Thank you very much, Katie. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Thank you. First, congratulations for this excellent conference. It's a total success, this fantastic conference. Thanks for the organization and thanks also for helping me to present online. Well, here I will present you a little bit about our research on strategies to promote sustainable behavior for microplastics control. This is a collaborative project together with Cristina García from the Spanish Distance University, Alba Ardura, Noemí Rodríguez, and Eduardo Topico from the University of Oviedo. Well, we all know that the microplastic pollution is a really serious problem today for the oceans and for all the life they shelter. On the other hand, we know that feeling a marine citizen, which is basically feeling responsible for the oceans, promotes our behavior, at least in the field of plastics consumption. For example, avoiding single-use plastics. Although it's the control of microplastic pollution is a very complex problem because it involves a lot of stakeholders in the industry, in different. There are so many sources of microplastics that there are different sectors involved. But consumers can do something. At least we can reduce our plastic and microplastics consumption. How to do this? Here we have explored different messages about seafood and about the environmental impact and about impacts on animals to promote our behaviors. First, we obtained the permit from the Committee of Research Ethics. The project was approved, and then the experiment was online. For the experiment, we conducted this online experiment, first recruiting in Spain, first recruiting 4 random groups by snowball sampling, and we exposed them to different pictures, and we made 4 different groups, random groups, called A, B, C, and the control. We will see immediately the pictures they have been exposed to. And we asked them how much they will reduce plastic consumption, refuse products with microplastics, replace them for green products, and recycle. And we also asked them if they will to be actively engaged in pro-environmental activities. Then we did data analysis, ANOVA, and multiple regression, and here you can see very summarized the results. When we used the images of seafood with microplastics, for example, this fish, we obtained the greatest effect. It was highly significant regarding the control in a positive way. That means that the participants really were willing to adopt our behaviors. The view of images with marine plastic pollution was also efficient, not so much, but it was also efficient. And unexpectedly for us, as we will see immediately, the images with dead animals entangled with plastics had no effect, was not significantly different from the view of simple rubbish or garbage on the beach. We found also that feeling responsible for the marine environment, which is feeling a marine citizen, predicted significantly the willingness to adopt our behaviors regarding plastics and microplastics consumption. We found no effect of age, curiously no effect of previous knowledge of microplastics or the education level. So they didn't predict significantly in this experiment and these samples the adoption of our behaviors. The gender, self-defined gender, had some effect because in general females were more sensitive about any of those images than males, and were exhibited like a greater willingness to adopt our behaviors. Here we have the more detailed results regarding the 4 types of our behaviors. As you can see, sort litter was the preferred behavior, followed by the reduction of plastic consumption, to refuse microplastic consumption, products with microplastics like cleansers or personal care products, buy green products instead, and finally the least preferred behavior was to engage in pro-environmental activities, actively engage in this type of activities. We had no evident explanation about why the unexpected result of the images of animals entangled with plastic ropes, for example, were not efficient in this sample, in this experiment. Because in other experiments similar to this one, also focused on reducing the consumption of plastics, like single-use plastics, were quite effective in other countries. And perhaps the explanation could be cultural. Some studies have shown that in Spain, the sensitivity about animals, animal care, animal suffering, is, at least in Europe, it's perhaps the country with the least sensitivity. Some traditions, some habits like, no, not habits, but traditions like bullfighting still happen in Spain. So perhaps the explanation goes that way. The final message is that environmental education campaigns that are recommended, highly recommended, should be encouraged, but they should be tailored. We recommend they are tailored by country, taking into account the country culture. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Eva. I'm not sure if we have one very quick question. No, I think you're getting away lightly, Eva. My main question was about this difference between the animal images and the seafood images, and we discussed that at the end. So thanks a lot for your presentation, and thanks for joining us online. We have one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Eva. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
One final speaker in this session who was invited very from Ghent University, who's also our tech guru for this conference. So over to you, Tim, and thanks for sharing the information.
So like Edie said, my name is Tim. You saw me jump up and down the stage here for the past 3 days, but that's actually not my day-to-day job. I actually work for Marine Training. You might have seen the logo a few times already in a few presentations. So it's not the same as Oceantraining. Linguistically, maybe they're very close, but they're actually completely different. Marine Training is actually just a catalog of training initiatives, anything ranging from a 2-day workshop to a 2-year master program that has anything to do with marine or maritime, any link with marine or maritime sector. So we want to be like an entry point for students that want to follow, I don't know, a course on marine ecology or a master in Cambodia, for example. They should be able to find it on here. That's our aim, at least. So we started in 2013 as a service of the European Marine Biological Resource Center, something you might also have heard of, and if you have not, check their website as well. And since then, so we have had continued the development, of course, it's almost 10 years. We launched a new version in 2020 because of changes in the backend, but the main change was actually that we used to be, because we started on the European project, we used to focus on the EU, but now we broadened that scope to worldwide. So this is a bit a map of all the trainings that we have in the database now. So we have over 3,000 programs, so that's things that lead to a formal degree, a formal diploma, so bachelor, master, PhD, things like that. And then we have the courses, so we have a lot less of them. Actually, there's a lot more of those going on, I think, but we have a lot less of them because they're very difficult to catch. So those are the 2-day workshops, the 1-week courses, things like that. Another change with the new version of Marine Training is that all these things come from different countries, but also from 102 different authors. So we opened up the data entry, we allowed distributed data entry up to the previous version. We were actually doing all this, and we ourselves, we could never get to 3,000, but now we opened it up, so we're getting a lot more data. And that's also my point, that, or my question to you. So if you know about courses, I saw a lot of courses going on, diving courses. I also saw a lot of master programs, of which I'm not sure that all of them are in Marine Training. I didn't check. But if you have the time, for example, if you're waiting for your plane and you have Wi-Fi, check Marine Training. If it's there, then we can also give you access to that record. But first of all, you need to register. So you either go to this link or you click the button on the homepage. You register for an account. It needs to be approved, so it could take a while. I will check it often today and tomorrow. So when you log in, you can add new programs, new courses, new events. Like I said, if your record is already there, we can give you access to it so that you can update that information, because keeping the data up to date is also a challenge. Some records were entered like 1 or 2 years ago, and I'm sure that information about master programs has changed in the meantime. Another thing that I saw a lot of examples here over the past 3 days is learning resources. So the games, the links, the online things. For those, we are making an additional catalog, actually what Lars presented on the first day. So, and that form will be in the same format, so there will be a button to add a learning resource if you want to share it with the marine training community. Can be a link, can be a document, can be a PowerPoint, can be a video, can be anything you want. Any learning resource will be in that catalog then. So remember this link, check it out, like I said, when you have some time, and register for an account and give us the data.
Thanks a lot, David. Any urgent questions for David?
Make the data visible. And make the data visible and beautiful.
Yeah.
Come on, you.
Thanks for the tech help. It was a brilliant, smooth conference. Thank
So that nicely brings me to the end of the meeting and some final messages that we'd like to share and look forward as well to what might happen next. I'm aware that even though I've been driving our speakers quite a bit this morning, that we're a little bit over time, so if anybody does need to leave, I won't be offended, but I have a few slides to go through just for the final closing remarks that we would like to share with you. So first of all, I think we are all really, really happy that we've had a great meeting. It's definitely surpassed the expectations of all of us organisers, I think. So thanks to everybody for that. We're really grateful to all of our partner universities, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the project that led to this meeting first of all, and then about the meeting itself so far. So you've heard a little bit about the Oceantraining project, but we didn't actually introduce it clearly from the beginning, so we're going to do that now. It was a 2-year funded project which finishes in March this year. It's one of the Erasmus Plus strategic partnerships from the call in 2020. And it's under the Cooperation for Innovation and Exchange of Good Practices, and specifically focused on partnerships for digital education readiness. And under that, and what you have heard us talk a little bit about, were the 4 work packages or intellectual outputs, as they were called in our project. The first one was the BASE project, which was led by us in Atlantic Technological University, with 6 online marine science courses to be developed. The second one, led by University Polytechnic Marche, was the support package looking at developing short online courses. Then IO3 was the explore package to look at creating virtual ocean lab and field resources. So when we can't take students in the lab or in the field, or when we realise the carbon footprint of some of our cruises, maybe we need to think about how we can present this information to large audiences in alternative ways. And that was led by Ghent University here. And then finally, the Unite package, which Lars spoke about before, but this kind of tool or repository for resources, that has come up, I think, several times during the meeting, as I mentioned earlier, and that was led by Sorbonne University. And through all of this, one of the key things we wanted to do was to bring a larger audience together and be able to discuss all of these topics and how we move forward in ocean education and training. So much more than the focus of our project on digital education, but really taking a step back and looking at ocean education and training from a really wide perspective. And that's what led us to the Oceantraining 2023 event, where we wanted to really create an opportunity for networking. I think what has been mentioned to me by more than one person this week is that through their scientific career, some varying from just a few years to, or months even, to 20, 30, 40 years, people have been talking about going to multiple scientific research conferences annually, but having never gone to an education conference. So this was their first ever education-focused conference. So I think that's a key message for all of us to take away, and to hopefully make sure that it's also not the last Ocean Education Conference either. So let's see how we go. So just to really quickly review what we've covered this week, we've had these different thematic sessions, so opening with a focus on international ocean education, then focusing on Bleu digital learning resources, coming back to this repository that we mentioned and all of the resources that we've heard about in the last few days. We looked at education and training in the Blue economy, where we discussed maybe some gaps in training and how we identify those. And I think something that came up in some of the discussions recently as well is how we target kind of people in industry and trades, and how we acknowledge that training in the preparation of our educational resources as well. Ocean science education for sustainable development was another theme session. And then today we've been talking mainly about ocean literacy in a changing blue planet. So these were thematic sessions that the organising committee chose. I'm sure there are many others that we could add, but I think it has given us a good flavour of what we're trying to achieve in ocean education and training. We also had the workshops, which I know, because they all happened at the same time, you had to choose one, which might have been difficult, but they were really interesting, really again focused on different training opportunities in ocean education and training. And maybe one thing that we might take away is that we didn't really have an opportunity for planning or discussing where this goes next. So maybe if anybody does have comments after this, and I'll mention that at the end, you can get in touch with us or hang around for a few minutes and have a chat with us. That would be great as well. And then this is what it has culminated in. So I think it has been definitely a major success. This is everybody that was here this morning. So our conference photograph, definitely a major success, and we're really delighted with how everything went. And based on that, I have a few thank yous before I move on to the very final kind of takeaway messages and key messages. So in terms of thank yous, I have to be careful that I make sure that I get everybody. So first of all, thank you to all of you, our attendees and speakers, and the chairs of our sessions who have made this possible, shared your information with us, shared your knowledge of ocean education and training, your experiences so far. It's been really rich experience for everybody, I think. Also to our sponsors, the museum here for the venue, the University of Ghent for their support, and all of the partner universities that were involved in the project who helped to get this event realised today. And now I'd like to ask some of you in the audience to stand, please, for a special thank you. And that is the organising committee of the conference and of the project that we're carrying out. Also Sophia and the team of student helpers who have been helping all week. Marlene, who has been a key part of the Ghent organisation as well and got pulled into this project along with all of her other work. And Tim, as we mentioned, who has been doing an amazing job of the technical help. So all of you stand up, please, for a round of applause. And then there's one person who I want to totally single out and have them stand up on their own, so two other people are going to have to lean down there at the back, and that's Mario. So Mario has been a project manager extraordinaire, not just for this meeting, but for the project that we're talking about that we've been running for the last 2 years, which included coordinating an online semester for master's students and much more work that was also brought into the role. So thanks a lot for that. And with that, I'd like to move on to some key takeaway messages that we've been discussing as a group in the last few days. I'm sure they won't cover everything, and you'll probably have a lot that you want to add. If anybody wants to, then really put your hand up and wave at me, and maybe we have time to include a few. It depends on your time availability as well. I think one of the key things that we realized when we were talking about this was our audience. We've been talking about kindergarten right up to like full life learning programs where you can continue your education into your much later stages. So this lifelong learning approach for ocean education, ocean literacy, I think is definitely a key message that has been loud and clear throughout the week, hopefully. Something that we really enjoyed as a group as well is the diversity of educators, or the diversity really of presenters, not just people who are involved in formal education, people who have presented from NGOs, from their work on research projects. Everybody can communicate science and share their knowledge and experience in ocean education and training, and that has been really interesting for all of us to hear, along with the different methods, the ideas, the resources, the different practices that all of you have shared with us over the past few days. It's been really eye-opening. We talked about multiple stakeholders. I think a key word that we've heard so many times is transdisciplinarity. So none of us can work in our own little bubble, just as we talk about the ocean influencing everything. What we are doing is having a bigger influence than just our own bubble, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to bring those stakeholders in to work with us as well. And I think that was really clear in what everybody presented. In terms of collaboration, I think it's clear that we have a very broad global reach in our presentations. We're probably quite Eurocentric, but maybe the program can get bigger in the future, or maybe that's a good thing to make things happen as well. But huge evidence of collaboration. We talked about joint programs across different countries, different regions, and that has really led to what we're doing and the diversity of the information that we can obtain. Communication, I think, was mentioned as key, as we know, but how we communicate and how we get our messages across and break down messages for the right audiences, this was also a key factor, and critiquing ourselves in how we communicate and how we can do it best and learn from others that we see presenting here. And then finally, and maybe quoting Ben's workshop, but having fun along the way. So it's been a really great few days. I think we've definitely all had fun. We've also had a really nice venue, good food, good company, etc. So that has led to quite a fun experience over the last few days. I think then we have a few ongoing opportunities that we might all reflect on, and I think one of those is the idea of just making everything that we do part of sustainability, and if we can be ensuring that we're addressing such a wide agenda, then we know that we're moving in the right direction. But how to make sure, again, I think coming back to always critiquing what it is that we're doing and the impact that that can have, and how it's interlinked with a variety of different other disciplines. Addressing gaps, I think there was quite a few different gaps. While we acknowledge that we're doing a lot of really great work, we've also identified some areas where we need to increase our efforts, and I think that's something that we can reflect on as well. And then in terms of efficiency and sharing, I think it comes back to the message I've mentioned already. It seems that quite a few of us are doing very similar things, and we're maybe duplicating our efforts or making it a little bit more difficult on ourselves where somebody else already has that knowledge. So how we can efficiently and effectively share our resources, network, I think these types of meetings can help with that. By only meeting up and talking to each other have we found out about all of these different projects. But if anybody has amazing ideas or brainwaves in the next few days and weeks about how that can happen, I think the Marine Training Portal is a really useful way for that. Some of the other databases and portals that were mentioned as well, if we can try to capture that, I think, and share it with everybody in the end. And as I mentioned, sharing too, you've all signed to share your resources. So we will be in contact with everybody after the meeting. We've kept a list of the attendees, so you'll be able to follow up with people that you've met here at the meeting. And also if people are happy to share additional resources, you'll be able to log them on Marine Training. So I think the aim there is to come back to Lars's challenge and try to not have this be the case for the future, where we can be super prepared and super focused and know what we're doing, but let's see how we go for that. And then a key question that we have is the next meeting. We would really like this. We did call it the first conference, hoping that this was a message for everybody that would attend, for it to continue and for this not to be a once-off event, for us to try to ensure as a community that we can keep this going. So we don't know if anybody here has been really thinking that this is an opportunity that they can take part in. One thing that we did discuss is that maybe an annual meeting is too much for all of us. to manage. So we kind of made a suggestion here of a 2 or 3 year gap between meetings, but I see people nodding, so it seems like you agree with having that sort of a gap. I don't know if you have other feedback, if anybody wants to single themselves out and put their hands up as interested in organising a meeting in the future. No pressure. Okay. So I think I will come around to it at the end anyway and share our contact details. So I think maybe I have one more. Yeah, I have one more final messages and then just a closing word. So thanks a lot for everybody for joining. I think that's key for all of you. We do have to ask you to do one more piece of work for us. So along with thinking about the marine training resources, the post-event survey is really important to us because Sophia has worked really hardly with us as well on the committee to design the survey that more than half of you completed before the meeting. So thanks a lot for that. Now we want to also send you a post-event survey. And we hope to work on this, and if we get good enough results, to take it further as a study. So that's why we've been asking you quite broad questions, not just about this meeting or anything like that. Just to wish you safe onward travel and happy ocean educating for the future. And then I think the final comment that somebody mentioned to me yesterday is this idea that the ocean has no boundaries, and neither should our ocean education. So hopefully as a community we can continue with that in mind. And with that, I leave you with the contact details of those of us that were involved kind of in organising the programme and everything, and feel free to contact us if you'd like to organise the next meeting, if you have any questions, and you'll hear from us again. So just with that, thanks again to everybody. It's been a great few days, and well done to everybody for pulling it off.